Okay guys, I'm gonna go over how to do the conversion from DFA to regular expression. So this is the sample question that we did in class like a few weeks ago, I think. And this is where he did the state elimination. Because how we convert it is basically we're working through all of these nodes and kind of merging them together until we can turn it into one big expression. So let me copy this real quick. Alright, so, I have a little note up there. Start with the inner nodes. So in class, the professor chose to start with this right here, R. Probably just because it looks the easiest to get rid of. So getting rid of this, what we have to do is, like I said, merge these together. So when you're at state S, like what are all the combinations at R to move on to a different state? So to get from S to Q, you would have to have the string 1 followed by any amount of zeros. It can be 0 zeros or like 2 zeros, doesn't matter. And then followed by another 1. So we'd write that down as the string 1, 0, closure, 1. Which, just a little vocab reminder, the closure is this. It just means that this can be in the string 1 or more times. Or sorry, 0 or more times. So, like a string that would get you from S to Q here could be just 1, 1, because you'd get 1, and then 1. Or it could be like 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, because you get 1, 0, 0. There. Alright. So we got rid of that. And because that covers everything, because R only can be gotten from S, and it can only go, alright, it can only be gotten from S, and it can only go back to itself, or to Q. We can get rid of this node, and for the next step, we can decide which one we want to remove, which next node. So, as the professor said, start with the inner nodes, so we'll do S for our next node to eliminate. Alright, so let's look at how we get from S to Q real quick. So there's two ways. You can either get a string of just 0, or this string right here. So we can combine these two into just one arrow by adding or. I don't think it's necessary, but I'll add parentheses just to make it clearer. So if you have just the string 0, you'd go from S to Q. And if you had like the string 1, 1, you'd go S to Q. And now, next up, let's try and get rid of from Q to S, this little transition right here. So let's combine these two, kind of make a loop. So Q, you would go back just by doing the string 1, and then followed by this string. So you have you have 1 parentheses, 1, 0 closure, 1 parentheses, or 0. And I'm going to put that back in parentheses. There, so now it's a little clearer. So you have to have the 1, and then it has to be followed by this to get back to Q. So with that, we can get rid of this little transition here. And next up, I want to get rid of this one from P to S. So we're instead going to make a transition straight from P to Q. So the only difference is just that you need to have this 0 from the starting point. Let me change the color. Alright. So you've got to have 0, and then it has to be followed by by 1, 0, closure, 1, or 0. Let me put this in parentheses. There's so many parentheses in the answer for this. It's awful. Okay. So you have your string 0 to get to S state, and then you have that next string. So they're combined into this one thing right here. So with that, we can get rid of this, and we can also get rid of this transition. And with that, we can get rid of S completely. So from here, we only have these two states remaining, and it'll be pretty easy to convert that into just one big regular expression. So let's take a look at the starting node, which is also our end node. So to get from the end, what do you call it? The goal node? To get from the goal node back to the goal node, you can either, you have this loop that's just 1. So let's make a big loop. So you can have 1 any amount of times at the start, and then let's follow it with, whoops, with just this all together. We're just going to combine it all. So I'll make some big giant parentheses, because this whole transition part right here, that's optional. You would be at the goal node if you had an empty string or just a string of 1s. Alright, so with that, we know that this will also be closure, because you can repeat this however many times. So let's start with this transition from P to Q. You have 0, parentheses, parentheses, 1, 0, closure, 1, close parentheses, or 0, close parentheses. So that's that. And next up, we want to add in the loop. So this, since it's a loop, it'll be optional. You can have it 0 or more times, so closure. That's 1, parentheses, parentheses, 1, 0, star, 1, close parentheses, and then or 0, close parentheses, and then you have the star. So that's those two. Let's erase those to avoid confusion. And now we just have to add this final transition that gets us back to our goal state. So we just have to add in a 0 at the end. It's our mandatory 0 to get from Q back to state P. There we go. I'll change it back to that color. So this is kind of terrible to look at, I won't lie. But That's how you get the regular expression from one of those state diagrams. You just have to go through and illuminate it like that. So real quick, I'll check, make sure that it fits the answer. Okay, yeah. So that's how you do that question.